Imagine you could completely automate the tax logic for B2B customers. With this plugin, the manual assignment of customer groups is no longer necessary. Customers with a valid VAT ID automatically see the correct net prices. Customers with a valid VAT ID automatically receive the correct price display, both domestically and for orders within the EU. The VAT ID is automatically checked during registration, address setup, or checkout, so incorrect entries are immediately detected. Additionally, individual tax rules can be flexibly configured using the Shopware rule builder. We are now on the homepage of the Shopware administration. In the first step, we open the plugin configuration. To do this, we navigate to Extensions and click on My Extensions. We then scroll down to the plugin and click Configure. First, exceptions for tax-free invoices and deliveries can be configured here. This allows you to define for which countries taxes should still be charged despite a valid VAT ID. This is particularly relevant for dropshipping scenarios where the goods are shipped from a warehouse located in the destination country. In the next step, we define where the VAT ID should be stored. By default, it is saved in Shopware's standard customer profile field. If different VAT IDs are used for billing and shipping addresses, the VAT ID can alternatively be stored directly within the respective address records. Let's move on to the general settings. The first three options cover VAT ID format validation, whether a VAT ID is required, and VAT ID validation itself. For all three settings, you can either use the country-specific configuration or enable or disable the functionality for all EU countries. Validation is performed via the official EU web service VIES and is therefore only available for EU countries. Optionally, not only the VAT ID itself but also the company name and address can be validated. Next, we define when the VAT ID should be validated. With this option, validation is performed directly during the checkout process. If the validation results in a change to the tax calculation or the cart total, the desired behavior can be configured individually. Customers can either be prompted to review and confirm the updated prices before placing the order, or the checkout process can continue automatically with the updated cart values. Additionally, the country can be detected and pre-selected automatically when a VAT ID is entered. Finally, we can define whether the VAT ID should also be validated whenever the customer logs in. In the next section, the VAT ID functionality can be restricted to specific customer groups. For example, validation can be configured to apply only to customers assigned to the B2B customer group. The next section contains the settings for error handling and logging. Here, you can define how the system should behave if the validation API is unavailable or if discrepancies are detected between the VAT ID, company name, and address. In addition, the validation level and logging mode can be configured. Optionally, the VAT ID validation status can be displayed on the customer's account page. In addition, you can define whether the VAT ID should be automatically removed from the customer profile as well as from the addresses when the customer switches to a private account. Let's move on to the settings for tax-free invoices and deliveries. In the first step, we define how the selected rules should be evaluated. You can choose whether a single rule is sufficient, whether all rules must be met simultaneously, or whether the extended ACRIS tax configuration should be managed through the country settings. For this example, we will use the OR condition. Next, we select which rules should be used for tax-free invoices and deliveries. The plugin already includes suitable predefined rules. These take VAT IDs stored in customer profiles, as well as billing and shipping addresses into account. The rules can be used as provided or extended individually if needed. Finally, we define whether this configuration should apply only to EU countries or to all countries. Based on these rules, we can now define exceptions. For example, if an Austrian merchant delivers goods to a customer within Austria, Austria can be configured as an exception. In this case, the delivery will not be treated as tax-free, even if a valid VAT ID is provided. Finally, additional exceptions can be defined for specific products. This allows you to use rules to specify that certain products should still be taxed, even when the delivery would otherwise qualify as tax-free. Finally, we define whether the VAT ID can be modified. Separate settings are available to control who is allowed to make changes to customer profile data and address data. In addition, automatic deletion of log entries can be enabled, and the number of days before the logs are automatically removed can be specified. We now save the settings and move on to the country-specific configuration. To do this, we navigate to Settings, Countries, and open any country of our choice. Here, we can configure the settings for each country individually. These settings are relevant if the country-specific configuration option was selected in the global plugin settings. To support this, the plugin extends the country settings with additional options. For example, VAT ID validation can be enabled via the official EU web service. You can also define whether only the VAT ID should be validated or whether the company name and address should be validated as well. Additionally, an informational text for the VAT ID field and a sample VAT ID can be provided to make data entry easier for customers. In addition, we can enable the extended tax exemption configuration for this country. To do so, the ACRIS taxes option is available. Once activated, rules can be assigned to this country. As soon as one of these rules is met, tax-free delivery will be applied for this country. This setting is also only relevant if the country-specific configuration option was selected for tax-free deliveries in the global plugin settings. Finally, we can review the VAT ID validation log. To do this, we navigate to Settings Extensions and click on VAT Registration Number Validation Logs and open the validation log. All VAT ID validations are logged here in a structured manner, including the date, status, and cause. This makes it easy to track when a validation was performed and what the outcome was. In addition, the individual validation logs are also stored directly within the corresponding customer record. Let's now take a look at how this works in the storefront. We are currently in the checkout process and registering a business customer. At first, we can see that the price is displayed including VAT. If we now enter a VAT registration number, it is automatically validated and confirmed as valid. If we enter an invalid VAT registration number instead, the validation fails and an appropriate error message is displayed. Let's continue with the checkout process using the valid VAT registration number. As we scroll down, we can see that VAT is no longer applied due to the successful validation, and the delivery is now tax-free. In addition, an information panel is available in the customer account overview. Here we can see whether the VAT ID has already been successfully validated and when the last validation was performed. If the customer changes their VAT ID in their profile, it is validated again. All validation activities are logged automatically. With the plugin, the tax logic in Shopware becomes more efficient. Start now and simplify your B2B processes. Automate and secure your tax logic for more flexibility and legal certainty.